The International Space Station will plunge into the sea in 2031, NASA announces. Is it true that the International Space Station will be decommissioned by NASA in 2031? Well, according to NASA, this is true, but the International Space Station, ISS, will remain functioning until 2031 in order to escape a watery burial at the farthest point of the Pacific Ocean. More than 30 years after it was launched in 1998, the International Space Station will be deorbited under NASA's budget predictions in January 2031. And because nearly all of the human-made space junk that has ended up at Point Nemo throughout the years has been dumped there, it earned the moniker the Space Cemetery. And once the space station is released from orbit, it'll plunge to the surface of the space cemetery and splash down. When and how will the International Space Station be phased out? And what's in store for the future of space exploration? Welcome to your favorite channel, Unlimited SpaceX. Don't forget to subscribe, like this video, and hit the notification bell for more exciting videos about SpaceX's ingenious projects and Elon Musk's many controversies. On board the International Space Station, ISS, an international team of astronauts and cosmonauts have been working at an incredible speed of 8 kilometers per second to undertake important scientific studies that have opened the door to further deep space exploration. It's all about to change in 2031 as NASA plans to decommission the spaceship and throw it into the South Pacific Ocean. New ISS exploration dates were announced by NASA at the end of last month because the Biden administration has agreed to continue funding the station's operations until 2031. NASA has signed agreements with 3 private companies to launch commercial space stations that'll be used by private companies and government astronauts once the ISS is decommissioned. According to NASA, these new space stations will be launched by Blue Origin, NanoRacks LLC, and Northrop Grumman Systems Corporation, respectively. The International Space Station, ISS, is predicted to sink into the ocean by the end of the decade. While these experiments are being conducted, NASA researchers and private contractors will keep the International Space Station busy. NASA's International Space Station Director Robert Gatens said the International Space Station is about to enter its 3rd decade as a groundbreaking microgravity research platform, and they're laying the groundwork for commercial future in low Earth orbit and returning medical and environmental benefits to humanity as a result of their successful global partnership in verifying exploration and human research technologies. So, what is the purpose of the ISS? It all started in 1984 when former US President Ronald Reagan advocated developing a spacecraft that could be permanently occupied with help from a few other countries. First, a control module for the space station was put into orbit aboard a Russian rocket in 1998. The Unity node was joined to the control module about 2 weeks later by a crew on the Endeavour space shuttle. After another 2 years of construction, the space station was finally ready to house a crew. The first crew arrived on November 2, 2000, and there have been a total of nearly 200 people from 19 countries on board the Space Lab since it was first launched in 1961. This space station, according to NASA, is about the size of an American football field and weighs about 1 million pounds. It can accommodate a 6-person crew, as well as visitors. In addition, it houses laboratory modules from the United States, Russia, Japan, and other parts of the European Union. In the last 2 decades, the ISS has seen a number of historic firsts. As an example, in 2018, NASA's Cold Atom Lab became the first space facility ever to create the 5th state of matter, known as a Bose-Einstein condensate. DNA sequencing was made possible for the first time in space by an astronaut in 2016. Water purification and food production on board the space station have also provided valuable lessons for those who lack access to these essential resources on the ground. Numerous achievements have been accomplished because of the ISS. But how will the International Space Station be phased out? Since its launch in November 2000, the International Space Station has completed an orbit around Earth every 90 minutes. Concerns about the space station's outdated equipment and the danger of irreparable failures were expressed by a Russian official in September. But in a report, NASA stated that there is high confidence that ISS life can be further extended through 2030. However, some evaluations of its viability are still being done. ISS re-entry into Earth's atmosphere is expected to occur in January 2031, according to NASA's calculations. Before the spacecraft begins its descent into the South Pacific Ocean uninhabited area, SPUA, in an area known as Point Nemo, Mission Control will first lower its altitude. The space laboratory will splash down 1,678 miles, 2,700 kilometers off the shore of Point Nemo, which is the ultimate resting place for numerous deceased satellites and space stations, including Russia's Mir, NOAA. What is Point Nemo? It's a watery tomb where space stations go to die, and it's thousands of kilometers from anywhere. Decommissioned space junk is frequently interred at Point Nemo, which has evolved into a sort of space graveyard. It's named after a figure in Jules Verne's novel 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, which is located roughly 2,700 kilometers away from any shore. Known variously as the South Pacific Ocean Uninhabited Area and the Oceanic Pole of Inaccessibility, the area surrounding the space cemetery is devoid of any human life. In terms of human civilization, it's pretty much the farthest outpost you can find. According to a Law Review article, almost 300 pieces of space debris, including at least 5 space stations, have been sunk at Point Nemo since 1971, most of them American or Russian in origin. It's in the transition plan to say that ISS operators will perform the re-entry burn, which is the final push to bring the space station down so that it may enter the atmosphere safely. Interestingly, the ISS was originally designed to be operational for only 15 years at a maximum. In 2014, NASA was granted a 10-year extension to its mission in orbit. So what's the ISS's next step? One or more commercially owned and operated space platforms are expected to replace the ISS when it retires, according to NASA's plans for its replacement. With NASA's help, the private sector can develop and operate commercial low Earth orbit destinations, NASA's Director of Commercial Space, Phil McAllister, said in a statement. According to Phil McAllister, we look forward to sharing our lessons learned and operations experience with the private sector to help them develop safe, reliable, and cost-effective destinations in space. Also, commercial spacecraft will be used to carry out future space research by NASA, according to a statement from the agency. Furthermore, this shift to renting space on commercial platforms could save the space agency $1.3 billion in 2031 alone. NASA's deep space exploration initiatives will benefit from the savings, allowing the agency to explore further and faster into deep space. NASA, on the other hand, has laid out a series of ambitious goals for the next decade before the ISS is put to rest. An analog for a Mars transit mission is one example of how the spacecraft can be used. According to NASA, long-term work on the space station includes experiments to support the agency's plan to return humans to the Moon and Mars. There are plans to put a woman and a person of color on the Moon this century. However, NASA's goal of 2024 has been pushed back until at least the end of the decade, or to no earlier than 2025 in NASA's words. After being used continuously since its inception in 2000, the International Space Station is beginning to show its age, like we earlier said, and there have been 2 separate reports of cracks in the Zarya module since 2019. The first was found in that year, and the second was made in the following year. It's also true that space stations have been deorbited before, but no object has ever been as large as the International Space Station. According to Live Science's sister site, space.com, deorbiting it may be a challenge. As a foreshadowing example, debris from NASA's Skylab space station washed ashore in Australia in 1979 after a chaotic and ultimately uncontrolled deorbit. It's quite fortunate that no one was wounded. Much of the ISS will probably not burn up in the atmosphere, and its irregular-shaped solar arrays make the station more difficult to operate as it descends. But we may have to start expecting a fiery demise for the space station in the near future. Thanks for watching, and hopefully we'll see you soon at our next video.